We finally have all of the practice speeds from Daytona, which teams are in trouble, which teams are in good shape, and is Ware Racing finally legit? All that and more coming up next. Alright guys, before we get going, if I haven't earned your subscription, hopefully I will earn that today. Alright, let's jump right into it and let's just look at these practice speeds from all 3 days. Day 1, practice 1, you had Harrison Burton, Austin Cindric, and Joey Logano. All 3 Penske cars, all 3 at the top. The 4th fastest was Corey LaJoie, but he was 1 second and 4 miles per hour off of Harrison Burton and Penske's pace. Day 1, practice 2, once again, Penske on top of the board. Notable about this is when all the cars were doing tandem drafting, basically. So you got Austin Cindric and Joey Logano at 1 and 2, followed by Dale Earnhardt and Justin Haley. And here's where the gap was closed a little bit, but still 7/10 off the pace and 3 miles per hour behind the Penske cars. And on to day 2, where teams, theoretically had a chance to catch up to the Penske cars or do whatever adjustments they were going to do, but to no avail because Harrison Burton, Austin Cindric, Ryan Blaney, top 3 and 5 miles per hour faster than the next fastest guy, Ty Dillon, in 4th for Petty Motorsports. So it is good to see Colleague, Trackhouse, Spire, Petty, Ware Racing, all of those guys be in the mix for that top 10. That is one advantage of the new car. It'll give the teams that were sort of mid-tier, like your RCRs, Trackhouses, Colleagues, teams like that, they now have a chance to get to that upper echelon of the Penskes, the Hendricks, the Joe Gibbs, the Stewart-Haas Racings. So that is one good thing that we are seeing from these practice speeds. But, however, with good things, there are some bad things. So let's talk about what Penske is doing to everybody right now and why they are in trouble. So a lot of people are going to say, okay, this is just a test. I wouldn't put too much stock into Penske being fast. Well, I will, because I've been around racing long enough to know when a guy lays down a lap like that, somebody is going to go out there and try to match it, and nobody could match Penske's speed. They couldn't even get close to it. So that is very concerning to me. As I've mentioned, Penske is very familiar with this type of car from their time with the Australian V8 supercar. And I think you could see a situation where Penske starts this season on absolute fire, very similar to what Hendrick Motorsports did last year with their cars. Just completely were on another level the entire season, or at least at the very beginning of the season. They had a little hiccup, I guess, in the midsummer or late summer before they turned it around again. But you could see something very similar with Penske here, and I think every other team is in trouble if they can't close this gap. Because, after they had a day to think about it, they were 4 or 5 miles per hour slower than Penske. And I know you're like, oh, it's Daytona, people sandbag. I don't think anybody's sandbagging this year because this car is so new that they're trying to learn everything they can about it. So I think these teams could be in trouble if they can't find some speed to match what the Penske team is doing. That being said, I do want to take a look at a couple of teams that you normally see run toward the back, or people give them a hard time for being field fillers or whatever you want to call it. But let's start with Spire. Spire got a lot of criticism when they first came into the sport because they were a for-profit team. They would hire drivers that basically paid to play, but they weren't in competitive equipment, and their business model was sort of mocked, even though they were one of the few NASCAR teams making money. So you can look at it several ways. However, this year, and even they started this last year, they basically have come out and said, we were waiting for the new car. So look at who they've hired now. They've got Corey LaJoie, Josh Bilicki, 2 actual guys that want to race, not guys that are just bringing money to the table to give the team money to make a profit. So first things first, and I like to start here, you've got 2 drivers that are good. Secondly, they've got equipment that is competitive. Last year, you saw Corey LaJoie have some good runs. So whoever they have their alliance with, I can't remember if it's RCR or Hendrick, but I think it's Hendrick. They have got an alliance with a team that has got some equipment in there that is actually, at least on occasion, can run with people. And now with this new car, we know that at least the chassis are pretty much the same. So you've got that pedigree of your team being able to compete with these other teams. And now you have drivers that can show you what those cars are capable of. The next team I want to talk about is Ware Racing. long the punching bag for a lot of people on social media. Like, there are so many memes about how bad Rick Ware Racing has been. And Rick Ware Racing has never made it any secret that they are a for-profit team and that they are waiting for the new car. But man, they ran really bad. But what was encouraging about this Daytona test, you saw some speed out of Rick Ware Racing. They look like they finally are legit. We know, I reported a while back, they have an alliance with Stewart-Haas Racing. So we now know that they are legit. They're paying some money. They're getting some information. Stewart-Haas was there with them at Daytona testing. The other thing, they have hired David Reagan as a driver part-time. He is one of the drivers. He is going to be their Daytona 500 driver. He's driving that 15, which will be a Ford Mustang this year. And so with those two things right there, you've got Stewart-Haas Alliance, you've got Stewart-Haas Help, and you've got a driver that has run really well, specifically at plate tracks or super speedways, I guess is what they want to call them now. In fact, if you remove the Penske cars from the equation, Rick Ware Racing was only a 10th behind other cars. Now, I know you're like, a 10th behind the other cars. Well, that's not that great, but for Rick Ware Racing, let's think about where we're at. For Rick Ware Racing, that is great, because for a team that you're used to seeing go multiple laps down before the first caution, they're now right there with the field, running with those same speeds at the most, the race that they spend the most money on every year. Teams spend the most money at Daytona. Rick Ware Racing is now within a 10th of those other teams that are spending all that money, except for Penske, who obviously just has figured this car out because they're familiar with cars like this. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying Spire and Rick Ware Racing are going to go up there and compete with the Penske's, Hendricks, and Joe Gibbs and Stewart-Haas's of the world. But what I'm saying is they've showed improvement, and it's not going to be as easy for these mid-tier teams or any of these other teams that are not quite on Stewart-Haas's level to just pass these cars. And I don't think it's only them. I was just using these two as examples for showing speed. But what's good about it is there is no longer any what you would call cupcakes. There's no longer any cupcake teams, hardly. Every team this year you're going to have to legitimately race against. There's no sandbagging. So that is one good thing about the new car. At least for a little while, everybody's going to try because everybody is on the same playing field. And so for that reason right there, the new car is a good thing. For all the terrible it comes with it, the terrible placement of the numbers and all this other stuff. Like, I know some of the drivers are concerned about the state safety because the car is too rigid. But the one good thing about the new car we can say is that at least everybody is going to try this year. Everybody's on a level playing field, and everybody is going to get after it. All right, that is all I've got for you today. If you like the content, please feel free to subscribe down below. And if you got a comment, leave it down in the comment section. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.